Imagine you're enjoying the single life, taking things at your own leisurely pace, when all of a sudden 3 children fall into your Manhattan bachelor pad, and you now have to be a responsible parent. Surely there will be some hiccups, and a few bowling plans rescheduled, and America watched these sweet learning experiences for 5 seasons in the late 60s. So successful, they even attempted a reboot of the same name in 2002. But even though the original brought joy and comfort to many households, the surviving members of the cast believed deeply in the family affair curse, which sadly has caused great misfortune and even death. I'm your host, Nostalgic Nick, and today we're checking out this unconventional family and seeing what they got into after the show ended. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up as it helps our channel a ton, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Let's go revisit with a true bachelor. Brian Keith. Uncle Bill Davis's life as a bachelor is completely flipped upside down when first, his 8-year-old niece is dropped off a year after her parents' death, and by the end of the episode, her younger twin siblings come to join the fun. And Brian Keith played this part wonderfully, very warm and paternal with the children.
Buffy, do you honestly think I'd let a little girl like you go traveling around the world without me?
Brian Keith was born to actor parents, his father being Robert Keith, who co-starred with Sinatra and Brando in 1955's Guys and Dolls. So a 3-year-old Brian even joined Dad for 2 films. As an adult in the early 50s, he began getting breaks, like 7 episodes of the series Suspense, and in 1956 he co-starred with Anne Bancroft in the very well-received crime drama Nightfall, after which he co-starred with Paul Newman in The Young Philadelphians, before heading on over to Disney and getting his feet wet working with twins. The Parent Trap in 1961 is probably his best-known work. He'd become a household name even further with his 3-time Emmy-nominated role in Family Affair. The series had a 60-day production schedule, but Brian would film his scenes in only 30. This freed Keith up for any film roles that might come up, like 1967's Reflections in a Golden Eye. And his career never slowed down, not on the big screen or the small. 1975's Saga, The Wind and the Lion was possibly his biggest production to date, starring Sean Connery, where Keith played President Theodore Roosevelt. And in the 80s, he was back on TV, headlining Hardcastle and McCormick as Judge Hardcastle. Brian died in 1997, tragically, of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He had been battling emphysema and lung cancer, and was reported to be suffering from depression and somehow financial problems. He died 2 months after his daughter, Daisy, also committed suicide. But what's interesting about this is that actress Maureen O'Hara states that she didn't believe Brian did commit suicide.
I think it was an accident, I really do, and there was nobody could defend him.
Saying that he had a very large gun collection and often enjoyed cleaning them and showing them off. She believes that it was an accident while cleaning the gun, but sadly we'll never know. Kathy Garver. Sissy was a gregarious teenager and a great big sis, often taking responsibility for her challenging younger siblings Buffy and Jody. Garver stepped onto the scene in 1953 and became noticed as one of the young slaves in the Cecil B. DeMille epic The 10 Commandments. Before, as a freshman majoring in speech at UCLA, she tested for her Family Affair role, which really changed her life. In the 70s and 80s, she transitioned more to voice work, like multiple Spider-Man cartoons.
But it's time for me to be myself, to be Firestar.
And today at 75 years old, she's still at it, currently with 8 projects in the works according to her IMDb. We last saw her in the game show To Tell the Truth, as Kathy did her best Dolly Parton imitation. And just like Dolly, Kathy is still enjoying her rockin' years. Johnny Whitaker. Jody is an adorable and recognizable star with his red hair and freckles, one half of the twins. And Jody was a responsible kid, kind of the opposite of Dennis the Menace.
And if you don't want to talk about where babies come from, you don't have to.
Johnny Whitaker began acting in commercials in the early 60s, and in 1966 he acted in a major feature, The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming. During his time as a child star, we saw him on several popular shows like 2 episodes of Green Acres and 3 of Gunsmoke. He continued his massive success with 1973's Sid and Marty Krofft created Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. Sadly though, Johnny had his fair share of troubles growing up. He struggled hard with addiction. He was arrested twice and stated that he lost everything.
Screw everything. And then it was sex, drugs, rock and roll.
His family held an intervention and gave him an ultimatum: get clean or get excommunicated. Thankfully, he was able to overcome his struggles and became sober. Since then, he has become a certified mental health professional as a drug and alcohol counselor. Apparently, Johnny and his TV sibling Kathy Garver had some bad blood in the last few seasons, but years back the two reunited to bury the hatchet. Johnny apologized on Oprah's Where Are They Now segment.
I'm truly apologetic.
I accept your apology. And I think that is very good.
In recent years, he's returned to acting, and today at 61 years old, he couldn't pass up a returning role in the 2016 Amazon reboot of Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. Sebastian Cabot. Giles French was Davis's butler and father number 2 to the kids, and Cabot really was brilliant as this gentleman's gentleman, who always appears so very proper and gruff, but was really charmed by these 3 kiddos.
No, Mr. Davis, wait, sir! You can't leave me like this!
Sebastian began acting professionally in 1935. He became known for playing the Wazir in the 1955 film Kismet, and then as Dr. Carl Hyatt in the TV series Checkmate in the early 60s. Sebastian was also a very talented voice actor, specifically in a number of Disney films, like in the Winnie the Pooh series as the narrator.
And on page 62, the blustery day turned into a blustery night.
His Winnie the Pooh work was his last, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh in 1977. Cabot died that same year at just 59 after suffering a stroke. Heather Angel. Angel played Giles French's good friend, and Heather stepped into the entertainment world in 1931. Her first co-starring role was in 1933's Berkeley Square, co-starring with Leslie Howard. Before stepping into her family affair role, she lent her voice to some very memorable film roles too, as Alice's sister in 1951's Alice in Wonderland.
My dear child, there are a great many good books in this world.
And then as Wendy Darling's mother in 1953's Peter Pan. And the last time we saw her act was 1979, one episode of the miniseries Backstairs at the White House. Heather Angel died in 1986 at the age of 77. ANISSA Jones. Buffy is your classic little girl who loved her prized toys and became very upset when she lost them, especially her prized possession, her Mrs. Beasley doll. The role of Buffy was ANISSA Jones' first Hollywood role.
Could you get along without me, Uncle Bill?
Nope. Can you name me one other uncle that's got a little Red Riding Hood that always falls down?
And she later played Carol Bix in the Elvis Presley comedy The Trouble with Girls in 1969. But these roles would do it for ANISSA, because terribly ANISSA Jones was struggling with drug addiction, and at just 18 years old, she died from an accidental drug overdose, a combination of cocaine, PCP, Quaalude, and Seconal. And just 6 days after her death, her doctor was arrested and charged with illegally prescribing Seconal to Jones. In total, the doctor was charged with 11 offenses, but he died while awaiting trial, 4 months after ANISSA. A terribly sad end to such a promising young star. Mrs. Beasley. We couldn't leave off the doll. ANISSA was basically required to carry that doll everywhere. And if you look the first episode when the kids arrive, Mrs. Beasley didn't have eyeglasses on. But episode 2 and beyond, she found her prescription apparently.
Anyway, I like Mrs. Beasley better than a big old bear.
So popular that producer Don Feddersen insisted that the character of Buffy remain perpetually 6 years old, even as ANISSA grew into her teens. In promotional appearances, Jones was even required to bind her chest and carry the Mrs. Beasley doll, and it sadly worked. The line of replica Mrs. Beasley dolls sold very well, and continued for years after the series' cancellation. So, who out there owns a Mrs. Beasley doll? Please let us know in the comments below, and share any favorite episodes that you recall. We want to hear from you. After all, these actors and characters will never die, so long as we remember them. As always, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more throwbacks. From all of us here at Do You Remember, thank you very much for watching.